I think there's some things that need to be addressed because we as men, let me tell you this, guys, this is our opportunity to shine. This is our opportunity to step up and to lead well. This is our opportunity to be the rock that our wives need, to be the rock that our families need. Because I'll tell you what, these times of uncertainty, upheaval, and constant change and unpredictability can be very, very difficult for people to handle. Maybe they're difficult for you to handle, and that's okay. But we can't just sit there. We can't just sit in it. We have to rise up and do something about it. Episode number 104. You can get all the show notes and resources at dadhackers.us/104. What's up, Dad Hackers? My name is Patrick Antonucci, and I am the host and founder of this podcast and community of Dad Hackers. Dad Hackers is a community of Christian fathers who are devoted to encouraging, equipping, and enabling one another to become the men that God has created and called us to be, so that we can raise up the next generation of fully devoted followers of Christ and leave a legacy of multi-generational faithfulness. Now, on this show, we primarily interview Christian men to dive deep into their experiences and insights into what it means to be a Christian man, a Christian husband, a Christian father, and a Christian leader. We ask questions that dig deep into the thinking and rationale and experiences of these men so that we can all learn and grow into the men that God is calling us to be. I'm so thankful that you've joined us today. Make sure you subscribe so that you never miss any of our value-packed episodes. Also, please make sure you leave an honest review if you're listening to this in iTunes or any other platform that takes reviews. Reviews boost the show's ratings, which means that more dads are going to come across our show and benefit from the content that we put out. I also wanted to let you know that we do have a free private Facebook group just for Christian dads. So after the show, make sure you hop on over to the show notes. There's a link for that in there as well. As we progress more and more into this whole quarantine business with the coronavirus and everything surrounding it, I wanted to jump on here and perhaps provide some encouragement, perhaps provide some solutions to some of the issues that we are facing now. There is a lot of upheaval. There is a lot of change going on. There is a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of quick, rapid change that is beyond our control. And so with that comes a whole host of issues and problems and things that come up. We're facing a lot of new situations and circumstances that we've never been able to face before. And I think there's some things that need to be addressed because we as men, let me tell you this, guys, this is our opportunity to shine. This is our opportunity to step up and to lead well. This is our opportunity to be the rock that our wives need, to be the rock that our families need. Because I'll tell you what, these times of uncertainty, upheaval, and constant change and unpredictability can be very, very difficult for people to handle. Maybe they're difficult for you to handle, and that's okay. But we can't just sit there. We can't just sit in it. We have to rise up and do something about it. And maybe you've been a guy who's been kind of sitting on the sidelines for a lot of your life up to this point. And maybe this is your opportunity to get off of the bench and to get into the game. So I wanted to share some of the struggles that I've seen men come in contact with through this whole thing, and hopefully provide for you some solutions to that. So one of the big things that I see a lot of people struggling with is this whole idea of social distancing and limited social interaction, because I know a lot of guys are very extroverted and they really crave to be out and about, to be with their buddies, to see the other men that they are doing life with, they're in relationship with, and to be out in public and to just be meeting people, talking with people. Like, that's how your body works. That's how God has wired you. And it's really difficult to just be inside, not doing anything. I mean, let's face it, we're extremely limited in what we can do. Here in Pennsylvania, we have a stay-at-home order at least until the end of the month, and we're not supposed to go out unless it's like absolutely necessary. And a lot of the things are closed around here. And so some of the ideas that I have for you, maybe they're solutions, maybe they're not. This is an interesting time because with the quarantine and with everything going on with coronavirus and with the social distancing and limited social interactions, along with that, we have a tremendous amount of opportunity before us in everything that we have with technology, social media, the internet, and these kinds of things. They afford us opportunities that even 10 years ago we wouldn't have had, let alone 20 years ago. Think of how different this would be if your internet just got cut off. Think about how different that would be for you. Things would be drastically different. So here's a couple solutions. They're not going to be as good as being able to just go business as usual, but hopefully there'll be some solutions, and maybe you thought of these, I don't know. But one of the things that you can use with technology is virtual meetings. We use Zoom to record our podcasts, and we use Zoom to conduct our Ironman Mastermind meetings. We just had one tonight, right before I'm recording this. And these are excellent ways to connect with other people. Now, I know that it's not the same as being physically present with the other person, but it is at least something that you can do. There's Skype, there's Zoom, there's FaceTime, you could video chat on Facebook Messenger, and a lot of these have a free option that you really don't have to pay anything extra for. You probably already have a phone, you probably already have internet connection, you're probably already paying for data. May as well use that. Something else you could commit to doing, and this can help you get out of your own head, because these situations, if you're used to being out and about and very active, all of a sudden switching to having to be inactive can really mess with your brain, if you will. So one of the ways to kind of get out of your own head is to begin thinking of other people. And I challenge you to think of people that you can text or reach out to every single day. One of the things I do every day is I go through my Facebook friends. Well, actually, there's a notification that comes up about people's birthdays, and I make it a point to reach out to those people every day whose birthday it is on that day and wish them a happy birthday. It's just one way that I can stay fresh in my connections with other people. And then here's the thing. If they reply back to me, I'll ask them how I can pray for them. And then I'll try to send them actually an audio message of a prayer. And there's something profound and impacting about that. I've had a lot of guys reach back out to me and like, man, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And not to toot my own horn, but to illustrate the power of reaching out to other people and the impact that you can have on them. And guess what? In this time, in this season that we are in, and I call it a season intentionally because it's not going to be forever. This season that we are in, we have an opportunity to reach out and to impact other people. If you're struggling right now, you are not alone. You are not the only one that is struggling in this circumstance and in this situation. Hundreds, thousands, millions of other people are struggling as well. So on that note, don't fall into the trap, the scheme of the devil of thinking that you are the only one that is struggling and that you're somehow not as much of a man if you struggle during this time. You are still a man. You are still a child of God. You are still created in his image. He still loves you. He still has plans and purposes for you. And his Holy Spirit still will empower you to do the things that you ought to do and that you need to do. But know this, that getting out of your own head and thinking about other people is not only Christ-like, but it also helps with the mental game that this thing can become. Being stuck inside, being out of our rhythms and routines can really become a mental game. And one of the things that we need to do is get out of our head so much. So hopefully that, I don't know if that helped you or not, but hopefully it did. Another thing is with the quarantine, with the social distancing, with the limited social interactions, with the closure of a lot of businesses, with schools being shut down, all of these things are culminating and causing chaos and disruption to the routines and rhythms that we've had in our lives. And this can be difficult because those rhythms and routines, on one hand, are very good. They help us stay on track and move forward. But on the other hand, they also provide a level of comfort. And we talk about getting out of our comfort zone. When we get comfortable, it's a dangerous situation to be in because there's that delicate balance between being comfortable and also being committed. Let me explain. So if you have a rhythm and a routine that you have through your day and it's helping you do the actions to achieve the goals that you're working toward, that's good. You're committed to that. But if those rhythms and routines are providing you a level of comfort to where you are almost lulled to sleep, then that's a problem. And so we have an opportunity right here to look at this situation from one of two lenses. We could look at it through the negative lens of everything that we are prevented from doing, how things have changed, how our lives have been impacted, or we could flip that script and look at this through the positive lens of, okay, here's a disruption. What does this make available? What opportunities does this open up because of the disruption? If you think about the early church, read through the book of Acts. In the first half of the book of Acts, it talks about how the early church was persecuted and they were scattered. Okay? But what happened? If you read carefully and you read between the lines, what looked like a devastating blow to the church and a win for Satan was actually a victory for the kingdom. Because guess what? Those people were scattered. They were put out of they were disrupted. They were removed from their normal rhythms and routines, and they spread out. And guess what went with them? The gospel message. And the kingdom multiplied and expanded and increased exponentially as a result of that disruption. And so a disruption doesn't always have to be a defeat. It can be something that deploys you into something better, into something new. It can destroy your comfort zone and get you doing things that you never thought you would have done before, put you into situations that you've never had to handle before, and it can help to sharpen you. And so when our rhythms and routines are disrupted, look for the opportunity. Look for what this makes possible. One way this has kind of disrupted my life is I work from home now. Thankfully, I didn't lose my job. Funny thing here, sidebar story. I work for an online school. We deliver online education exclusively. All our students are online. Okay? They closed the schools down here in Pennsylvania, and they made even the cyber schools, the online schools, shut down. We would have not had any problems continuing education for these kids, but they made us shut down. Go figure, right? But now, just this week, we started back up. And I'm working from home. Normally I go to the office and I work, and that's just how our school works. They want us to go to the office, which is fine. Um, but now I'm working exclusively from home until further notice. And I could do everything I can do from home because guess what? It's all online. As long as I have internet connection, I could do my job, not a problem. But the opportunity this affords me is now I have an extra 30, 40 minutes in the morning before I have to start work that I used to use doing travel time. I have an extra 30, 45 minutes on the end of my day that I used to use for travel time home. I'm saving money, probably 40, 50 bucks a week just on gas and tolls driving to and from work, not to mention wear and tear on the vehicle. I don't have to pack my lunch in the morning, those kind of things. So while my routine and rhythm was disrupted, I can look for what this makes possible. I can look for the blessings, the silver lining to the cloud, or however you want to think about it. Look for the positive in the circumstance, in the situation. And with rhythms and habits, I suggest you start new ones and start them as soon as possible, and start ones that are constructive rather than destructive. You don't want a new rhythm and routine of watching Netflix and eating a pint of ice cream every night. That's okay to do once in a while. Maybe not the whole pint of ice cream, but chill out and watch Netflix with your wife. Excellent thing to do. Take a breather. Have some rest. That's fine. Have some margin in your life. That's fine. But I will tell you this, when you get out of your rhythm and routine and you don't establish a new one, your default is to slip into laziness. And laziness is self-replicating and self-duplicating. And what I mean by that is that laziness begets more laziness. We just did a study through the book of Proverbs with our Ironman group. We did it the whole month of March. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of verses in there. And I knew they were in there, but now I was kind of reading it with an eye toward looking at these verses. And so many of them talk about the lazy man, the sluggard, the guy that doesn't want to put the work in. He wants the reward without doing the work, and then he ends up in poverty instead of plenty because he didn't do the work. So start new rhythms and routines. One of the things that's really going to help you is if you listen to, I believe it's episode 102 of the podcast. Just go dadhackers.us/102, or you can go into any of the podcast apps, and it's the podcast that's titled How to Develop Life-Changing Habits. So it was the one that was released before this week's podcast that just came out. So if you're listening to this recorded, just go to podcast 102. So dadhackers.us/102, or if you look it up, it's how to develop life-changing habits. And in there, I talk about how to develop new habits. And I'll give you a quick crash course in this. And this isn't something that I developed. This is something that I've just tweaked and applied to my own life. If you want a really good explanation of this, look up John Maxwell's Rule of Five. And basically the idea here is to get 5 actions, 5 critical tasks that you need to complete every single day. And these should be things that challenge you, that push you a little bit, but something that you can do consistently every single day. Probably not brushing your teeth, because you're probably already brushing your teeth. You don't want to pick that. But on the other hand, if you struggle to brush your teeth consistently, that may be one of the 5 that you need to do. And all you do, and I'm going to hold up a sheet of paper here because this is very crude and easy. And I don't mean inappropriately crude, but grab a sheet of notebook paper, okay? Across the top, write your 5 critical tasks. Down the column on the left-hand side, write the numbers 1 through 21. And your goal is to do these critical tasks for 21 days straight without missing one. If you miss one on any day, you have to start over from day 1. If you do all 5, no matter what else you do during that day, you consider that day a win. And if you get 7 of those in a row, guess what? You've won the week. If you get 21 of those in a row, guess what? You've probably developed a new habit. And if you do 30 of them in a row, you've just won the week or won the month. And if you do it for the whole year, you've won the year. So 5 critical tasks. Maybe you're trying to get into the rhythm of getting up on time. Make that your critical task, 5 a.m., whatever it is. Maybe one of your critical tasks is to work out every day, get some kind of physical movement. Make that one of your 5. Okay? Whatever your 5 are. I'll tell you a couple of my 5. One of them is to post 2 times a day on Facebook and Instagram for dad hackers. Another one is to reach out to people on Facebook that have birthdays. Another one is to read 10 pages. I'm currently almost finished with John Eldredge's book, Wild at Heart. This is my second go around with the book. Excellent book. We're reading that together in our Ironman group. And next, after that, actually, if you want to kind of follow along, is we are reading Ken Harrison's book, Rise of the Servant Kings. And he is the CEO and chairman of Promise Keepers. If you go back a couple more episodes in the podcast, I did interview him, and that's been out. It's Rise of the Servant Kings. I can't remember what number it is, but if you just Google Dad Hackers Podcast, Ken Harrison, it should come up. If you go dadhackers.us/podcast, it's right there, one of the most recent ones, or any of the podcast apps, one of the most recent ones, it's in there. Anyway, we're going to be going through his book, Rise of the Servant Kings, next. But back to my point, I went off on kind of a tangent there, but the critical tasks, 5 critical tasks that challenge you, that push you a little bit each day, that you're going to do consistently, that are going to work you in the direction of meeting your goals. I know why I went off on a tangent, because one of my critical tasks is reading 10 pages in a good book, a good personal development book, spiritual development book, a how-to book. I'm not reading fiction type books. Nothing wrong with that. That's just not my goal right now. 10 pages is one of my critical tasks. Read 10 pages in a book every single day. So on your sheet of paper, you want to write across the top your 5 critical tasks, and then down the side, the numbers 1 through 21. And next to the number 1, not underneath your 5 tasks, but to the left of it, you want to write the day that you're going to start, whatever day 1 is. Maybe it's April 1st. Maybe it's May 1st, whenever you're listening to this, start doing it. 1 through 21. And then as you do your critical task, each of those 5, you put a little check mark underneath it, across from that day. And then day 2, the next day, you put the date. And then as you do those critical tasks, check them off. The goal is to do all 5 each day for 21 days straight. If you miss one on any day, the idea is you start back over. This is self-accountability. I'm not going to check in on you. You don't need an accountability group. You don't need, any kind of tips, tricks, bells, or whistles. You just have to do it and be accountable to yourself. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Just start back at day 21 or day 1. Once you hit 21 days straight, you take one of those critical tasks off the list, the one that is the easiest for you to complete. You continue to do that, because now it should be a habit or very well ingrained into your rhythm and routine. And then you slide a new critical task in there. You always want to be doing 5 critical tasks each day. Okay. And if you continue to do this over time, by the end of 3 months, you will have amassed so much action in your life. You will have created so many new habits and routines. Not even have to go to the end of the year. I mean, of course, you want to do this till the end of the year, but you don't have to wait that long to amass a great amount of action there. All right, guys, wanted to take a quick second to tell you about the Ironman Mastermind. If you're looking for a band of brothers that you can lock shields with, that can go to battle with you in the day-to-day life, who are also in the trenches, going through the same struggles and the same challenges that you are going through, I suggest you check out the Ironman Mastermind. This mastermind was developed and designed for Christian men to help us become the men that God has created and called us to be. And it's designed to help us increase our relationship with God, increase our relationship with our wives, increase our relationship with our children, and begin to provide better for them financially, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, relationally, in all of those areas those things that wake you up in the middle of the night. These are the kinds of things that we work on. These are the kinds of ways that we can help you out in the Ironman Mastermind. If this is something that is of interest to you, you may want to join the Ironman community, and you can check out more information at dadhackers.us/Ironmen, one word, Ironmen there. All right, now back to our show. Another thing that I know guys are really struggling with is having discipline, being consistent, and being energized. And I think those three are very well intermingled or linked together. I think when you are disciplined, it helps you to be consistent. And when you are consistent, you feel like you're winning at life. And so you are more energized to do things. So one of the things, that action stack that I just went over, that rule of 5, do that. Seriously, do that. If you don't get anything else from this, do that one thing. That will help you in so many ways with developing discipline and consistency and energy. So let me just tell you a story for illustration purposes. Today, I was hanging out with my youngest son. He's 8. He just turned 8 at the end of February. Actually, he's born on Leap Day, so he's a Leap baby. So we joke with him that he's now 2, and he'll be able to drive when he's 4. So anyway, he just conquered the ability to ride his bike down this steep hill that we have on our street. And so now what he likes to do is when we hang out, he said, "Dad, come on, can I ride my bike?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, let's go for it. You want to go down the hill, don't you?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was watching him because he's still learning how to do it, but he'll go down the hill, all the way down to the bottom, turn around, and he'll actually ride back up. I think he likes the challenge of trying to pedal the whole way up the hill and not have to walk his bike up. And so he did this several times, and I was thinking, man, there's a great illustration here. And the idea is, it's really easy to coast down a hill and get to the bottom. And when you're at bottom, looking back up that hill, it can look very daunting and intimidating. Some of you have hit rock bottom, and when you're sitting there rock bottom and looking up, it's really tough. It's really hard. And so what he does is he'll get all the way down to the bottom, and he'll go down the street a little bit more. It levels off down there. Then he turns around and he gains a little bit of speed and starts going up the hill, gains a little bit of momentum. And so the first maybe 10, 20% of going up the hill isn't too hard. But when that momentum expires, it's all muscle and gut and dig to get the rest of the way up that hill. And he's just one pedal at a time going up that hill. And he can't go straight up the hill. He does the switchback thing where you go back and forth, zigzag up the hill to kind of break up the steepness of the hill. But the first time I watched him today come back up the hill, when he got all the way to the top of the hill, he had a big smile on his face. And he was out of breath. I mean, he was huffing and puffing, but he had a big smile on his face. And this is how life is. It's really, really easy to coast down a hill to where you hit rock bottom. And while you're down there, the only place you can really look is up. And that, of course, is looking up to God. But if you look up the hill you just came down, it can look very steep, very intimidating, very daunting. And then there comes a point where you turn around and you are determined to get back up that hill. And the excitement and the newness of that new goal to get up the hill provides you the motivation that you need to take off and to begin. But that motivation and that inspiration doesn't always last the whole way up the hill. And so at some point on the way up the hill, you have to begin pedaling hard. You have to begin digging down deep. You have to begin to make tweaks, make corrections, switch back and forth, all the while still focused on the goal of reaching back up to the top of the hill. And it's hard and it's difficult. And you may hit roadblocks and you may have to get off your bike, so to speak, and walk a little bit. That's okay. But you got to keep going. And discipline and consistency are two key factors to getting back up to the top of the hill. Those are two key factors. But that alone isn't always enough. You have to have a goal bigger than that to drive you. So his goal, of course, is getting to the top of the hill so that he could go back down it. And every time he went down it, I watched him, he went a little bit faster because it's just thrilling. You know, he's a boy, he's a young man. He likes the challenge of going up the hill, and he likes the reward of being able to coast down the hill because it's fun and you go fast. And he just starts going faster and faster and faster each time. But having this goal that's bigger than yourself is very, very motivating. And another thing that I would say is don't sleep in. Some of you may have the opportunity to sleep in because of the change in your circumstance and situation. Some of you may not. Some of you may be naturally rising early. But I will tell you, there is something magical that goes on in the morning. And I've been getting up early. My time right now is 5 a.m. to get up, and I start work at 7. And so I have 2 hours there to get up, do my morning stuff, get a cup of coffee, do my devotional time. I get my 10 pages in, I get my journaling in, I get my breakfast and all of those things. And I'll tell you what, I'm not 100% at it. This morning, as a matter of fact, I slept in, and I had to kind of scramble in the morning. I got up in time to be on time for work. But then on the back end of my day, I paid for it because I didn't do my morning routine like I normally do. I didn't get my 10 pages in when I normally do. I did get it in later in the day. I found some time. I made some time to do it. But that's not always going to be a possibility. There is something magical about getting up early, getting your day started, and then launching into the rest of your day, having already accomplished many things. Very, very motivating. So another thing that I know guys have been struggling with is the negativity, their mental state, and falling into anxiety. I'm going to try not to spend too much time on this because I know this is already getting long, and I didn't want to go too long. But several things. Sometimes you have to purposefully and intentionally set things up in your life to beat the negativity. One of the greatest things to beat negativity is with gratitude. Now, that might sound cliche, but it's very true. You have to train your mind to think positively. You have to ask God to empower you by His Spirit with a spirit of positivity. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those three that I kind of paused and highlighted on. Joy, peace, and self-control are three aspects of the fruit of the Spirit that you really need to call upon God to empower you with and to fill you with. If you are in a negative mindset, if your mental state is not very good right now, and if you're slipping into anxiety, you really, really need to connect with God and ask Him to empower you with those aspects of the fruit of the Spirit. It's hard to be caught up in anxiety when you are joyful. It's hard to be in a negative mental state when you have peace. It's hard to be any of those when you have self-control. Because lots of times the negativity, the negative mental state, and the anxiety results from a chain of events that occurs in our minds in this pattern of thinking that we've developed over time. In this story that we tell ourselves, maybe it's catastrophic thinking, maybe it's black and white thinking, maybe it's always looking at what you don't have or how a situation impacted you negatively. These are patterns of how you've either been taught to think or how you've trained your brain to think over time. I understand there's mental situations with medication and mental disorders and a lot of those things. But I think a lot of it can be helped very much by retraining your brain. Another thing is that we don't always consider the spiritual warfare that is going on with anxiety and with depression and negativity and in a bad mental state. This may be a situation where there is some demonic persuasion. I'm not saying you're possessed by the devil or anything like that, but I am saying that the devil uses anything that he can to defeat you. He may not get you to deny Christ, but if he can just get you to sit on the bench and render you useless and ineffective for the kingdom of God, then he's won a major victory because he just took one of God's key players out of the game. And so what we need to do is to call upon the power of the Holy Spirit. We need to resist the devil because he prowls about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. And this is why we need to be sober-minded. This is why we need to be thinking clearly. This is why we need to be thinking biblically, and therefore we need to be in God's word consistently. So if you want to beat the negativity, if you want to beat anxiety and depression, I would say, number one, get in God's word. Number two, connect to God through prayer consistently. And number three, develop new patterns of positivity and gratitude. Hopefully that's a solution for you there. And the final thing that I see guys struggling with is reverting back to old ways. So, and this is destructive patterns and behaviors that you may have defeated for a season, but now that things have changed, things are uncertain, things are difficult, things are challenging, things are hard, it's easy to revert back to those old ways. One of the big things that I see guys struggle with, and I've struggled with it myself, is pornography and going to pornography, or food and food addiction and going to food for comfort, or social media addiction and just constantly scrolling on your phone, or addiction to media like news and talk radio. I'll tell you, a lot of that is responsible for a lot of people's anxiety and depression. If you're think about this, the news networks are fear-based. They all work off of fear. They want to incite fear, hysteria, and panic in you so that you continue to watch their programs to see what next catastrophic thing is coming, thus increasing their ratings. But they work off of fear. And the more you expose yourself to that, I'm not saying you stick your head in the sand and ignore everything that's going on. What I am saying is that you strategically limit and expose yourself to news media, talk radio, and social media. You have complete control over that. Nobody is forcing you to consume this stuff at the rate that you may be consuming it. So old ways that you may be slipping into are going back into pornography, going back into old eating, going back into constantly checking your phone, going back into, an overconsumption of news and media. These things, you have to be aware of these things. And I think awareness is key. Be aware of your tendency to fall into these things so that you can come and combat them. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up there because I went a little bit longer than I anticipated going, but that's okay. I hope this was valuable to you. If it was, let me know. Shoot me a DM. If you have a question, I don't know that I'll have an answer, but I'll give you my best attempt. And if I can't help you, I'll probably be able to point you in a direction that you can. Also wanted to mention, guys, that the Ironman Mastermind is open for enrollment. If you go to dadhackers.us/Ironman, you can check out the page there. It has all the info, all that it's about, everything that's part of the membership there. And then there's a button where you can apply, and then we hop on the phone, we chat a bit, see if the program's a fit for you, if you're a fit for it, and then we can enroll you. But enrollment or applications are now being accepted, so make sure you check that out. And also make sure that you are focused on leading your family well at this time. Like I said at the beginning when I started this off, this is an opportunity for us to shine as God's men, for us to get up, step out onto the field and begin playing ball like it really means it. Because guys, right now, it really means it. There are tremendous opportunities for you to lead your family now, and there are tremendous opportunities for the gospel to go forth. And I think God's going to do some amazing stuff. There's going to be some amazing revival as a result of all of this. His church cannot be put down. I know a lot of church buildings are shut down and a lot of mass gatherings of Christians are shut down. But let me tell you what, the church is alive and well and healthy. And I have a sneaking suspicion that it's growing. The church always seems to grow more with the intensity of persecution and oppression. And I think that's what's going on right now, is between, well, I mean, it's self-explanatory, but this can be seen as a situation in which the church is being oppressed, whether intentionally or just as a collateral damage piece of what's going on with everything social distancing. But I'll tell you what, guys, the church is not dead. She is alive and well and growing and multiplying and expanding and increasing. All right, guys, going to wrap it up there. Hope that was helpful to you. Like I said, if so, let me know. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me a message. I'd be happy to help. All right, guys, stay sharp. All right, gentlemen, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope our conversation was a blessing to you and that you leave this episode better equipped to be the man and the father God has called and created you to be. If so, then I ask that you please leave us a 5-star rating and a quick written review in iTunes. Then make sure you head on over to the show notes to get all of the resources for this episode. While you're there, you can take part in our 5 Days to Be a Better Dad challenge, as well as get involved with our free Facebook community. All right, gentlemen, until next week, remember Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Stay sharp.